Welcome to another Mike Reads Reviews. Tonight we're going to be reviewing Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History. I actually finished this about 2 weeks ago, and I kind of don't remember it all that well. I probably should have taken notes when I read it, and I should probably be taking notes from now on. I will post a link in the description to this video to where I got it on Amazon. I'm sure it's going to be the same link that you can get it from, because it's so new and recent that I'm pretty sure there's only one place to get it and there's only one link to get it from. I think it's going to be pretty short and sweet because there really isn't much to say about the book. And I'll start off with just basically what it is. I honestly it's hard to distinguish what Ben was going for in terms of what this actually is. I mean, he basically makes the point in his lectures, and that is that in order to have a civil and just society, you need to balance at a philosophical level reason, which was the Aristotelian philosophies, with moral purpose, which comes from some sort of what he suggests is a higher power, if you will. He basically says you have to mix the a prioristic positions of religion with science for all intents and purposes in order to come up with a guiding and principled philosophy that can possibly create a just society. So I kind of see where he's coming from with this, because there are some morals that we just can't possibly reason out right now and that are beyond human comprehension at this point. For example, the most common one is, can we trust our senses? Are we brains in a jar? Is the Matrix thought experiment. So there's no way to suss that out through reason. And a lot of the things that are in, for example, the 10 Commandments, as Ben lists, are things that you just have to take a prioristic positions on. It's going to be really hard to reason a lot of those things that are in the 10 Commandments, in which were guiding principles for, yes, our founding fathers in many respects. I'm not going to say I disagree or agree with it, but I will say that his presentation was forgettable. And the content of the book was honestly forgettable. It may be owing to the fact that he tries to present a formal argument, which is the one I just presented to you, in such an unbelievably informal tone. So honestly, the best parts of the book are parts of the book that have nothing to do with the argument he's making. Well, not nothing to do with the argument he's making, but withdrawn from context, have nothing to do with the argument he's making. Those are the stories about his daily life and the stories about his family. Honestly, Ben, if you just came up with a book that was like, here's my diary and my journal, and like thoughts about my day-to-day life, I find that more interesting than honestly what's in this book. And to be honest, if you're a fan of Ben Shapiro, it's going to be incredibly redundant. His lecture tour from 2018 and 2019, and to some extent from 2017, pretty much sums it up. And he talks about basically everything that he's got in this book on his show. So I would honestly say the most useful tool, the context under which I would describe this book as being the most useful, was if you were coming from the left and you were going to be conducting like a philosophical debate, over philosophy with Ben Shapiro, and you were trying to get into his mind and how he thinks in preparation for the debate. This is great for that, because his thought processes are really well organized in terms of just getting into his brain. I don't think that he necessarily makes the world's best presentation for his argument. I guess what he suggests is that the fall of the expansion of extreme leftism and in Marxism, the mainstreaming of it, comes from a degradation of the notion that we have to combine these two tenets, which is science with religion for all intents and purposes. Yeah, I know I'm giving an incredibly reductionist perspective on this, but I'm going to try to keep this review under 10 minutes. So I don't know how to describe a book that's 250 pages long without giving you a pretty reductionist description. But yeah, he suggested that is a problem in our society today. It's what's caused the proliferation of the radical left and the Marxist and Maoist left to be mainstreamed, and he proposes some basic really generic, to be honest, resolutions to that problem. I'm not going to say I dislike the book. I'm not going to say that it was a hard read. As far as the book itself is concerned, it's like everything I would want from a printing company to print a book. It's like exactly the right font, exactly the right spacing. The pages themselves are excellent. The binding of the book is excellent. I love the weight of the hardback, and I do have the hardcover. I try to get hardcover where I can. But like I said, it's kind of forgettable, and he writes in a very informal tone, which, a lot of people actually prefer. I don't. You guys have seen what I read. I read a lot of Thomas Sowell, who writes in a very formal tone. I'm reading the Federalist Papers right now. I've read Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. I've read Thomas Paine's Common Sense for this book, for this channel. Yeah, okay. The gotcha is, I did read A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy, but that's that's a fiction book. So when we're having either an essay or something that's supposed to be some sort of work of nonfiction, I prefer lots and lots of annotations. And just to give you an example of that, let's just as a test. Here are the notes. Here are the references for Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History. There's the thickness of the book. There's the thickness of the notations. So I think the last review I did was an essay written by Thomas Sowell that was 13 pages long, and there were 13 pages of references. That's the type of modern day writing that I prefer. Again, I've read Hayek, I've read Hazlitt, and these are all very formal tones. I've read Keynes, unfortunately, and these are all things that are works of nonfiction that are presented in a very formal tone. And I guess that's just my personal preference. And again, it's incredibly redundant to what Ben talks about in his lecture series and on his show all the time. I don't know that you're necessarily going to get anything new out of this. If you're reading it by itself, it's an okay introduction to Ben. I think you'd do better to just go to YouTube and watch any of his lectures to get some real insight into how he thinks. And I don't even think it's a real comprehensive look into the mind of Shapiro, if you will, because there's a lot of stuff that he's written that has little to do with anything that he's written in this book. Particularly the stories about the books he's written about that have to do with baseball and his father and his family relationships. But honestly, again, not something I hate, not something I really liked. It was honestly forgettable. So glad I read it because I guess it was just something I felt like I needed to do. If nothing else, for no other reason than to get Ben Shapiro's name on my channel so I can get myself in trouble, because I love getting myself in trouble. And as I always do, I like to close with a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm gonna be kind of brutal because it was neither really great or really bad. Right in the middle is a 5. So this may be my lowest rated book other than Keynes, in which case I'm going to give this a 5. So again, link is in this video's description. And that's what I thought of Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History.